Today we're going to be making this very easy and fun Christmas gnome wine cozy. And this is a great way to gift a bottle of wine or liquor or to just add decoration around your house during the holidays. And for our Christmas gnome wine cozy, I am working with 4 different colors of size 4 medium weight yarn. And these 3 are all by the Lion brand yarns Re-Up Recycled Cotton and Polyester Blend yarn. And this is the Lily Sugar and Cream cotton yarn. I'm just mix and matching brands because they don't actually offer red in the Re-Up yarn. You're also going to need a size 6 or 4 1/4 of a millimeter crochet hook. And I recommend grabbing a scrap piece of yarn, a stitch marker, or a safety pin for this. And we're going to begin with a magic circle. So take your tail and drape it over your working yarn and pinch that intersection. Insert your crochet hook and then yarn over and pull through. We're going to separate our loop out like this so that our tail is on the top side. We're going to chain 1 and then place 8 single crochets inside of our magic circle. And make sure when you're working these single crochets, you're working them in your loop as well as over your tail here. And if your magic circle is ever difficult to work in, it just means it's too big. So go ahead and pull on your tail to make that circle a little smaller and easier to work with. And once you have your 8 single crochets in place, then you're going to pull on your tail to tighten the gap in your magic circle. And we're going to skip our little chain 1 right here and dive right into our first single crochet. And you do have the option of working over your tail by lining it up with your stitches and treating it like it's part of your stitch. From here, we're going to place 2 single crochets in this first stitch. And we want to go back and mark the first of those single crochets. So as you can see here, this will begin a spiral pattern. So this stitch marker is going to indicate the first stitch in each of your rows. So you're going to work up to that stitch, but not in it. From here, we're just going to place 2 single crochets in each stitch in our row for a total of 16 single crochets. And at the end of your row, you can remove your stitch marker. And from here, we're going to place 1 single crochet in our first stitch, and don't forget to mark that stitch. Then we want to place 2 single crochets in our next stitch. So we're just going to alternate between 1 and 2 single crochets going around our row for a total of 24 single crochets. And again, at the end of your row, you can remove your stitch marker. And for our next row, we're going to place 1 single crochet in these first 2 stitches. And don't forget to mark the first stitch. And from here, we're going to place 2 single crochets in our third stitch. So that's going to be our pattern going all the way around our row for a total of 32 single crochets. And at the end of your row, you can remove your stitch marker. And for our next row, we are going to place 1 single crochet in the back loop only in each stitch in our row. So this is going to be the loop that's furthest away from you when you're looking at your stitch. And at the end of your row, you can remove your stitch marker. From here, we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row for the next 38 rows. And once you've added your 38 rows, then your wine cozy should look something like this. And since every yarn brand is a little different, you basically just want to get this near the top of your wine bottle before it starts to slope in. So if you have to add or remove rows to make that happen, it's not a problem. So from here, we're going to finish off this portion of our wine cozy. So we're going to place a slip stitch in our next stitch. Then we want to cut our yarn. And from here, we're going to slide our crochet hook up underneath our next stitch and pull our yarn all the way through to tie it off. So we're going to make the hat for our gnome next. And we're going to begin with a magic circle. And then we want to chain 1 and place 5 single crochets inside of our magic circle. Once you have your 5 single crochets in place, go ahead and tighten up the gap in your magic circle by pulling on the tail. From here, we're going to skip our little chain 1 and then place 2 single crochets in our first single crochet stitch. We're going to go back and mark that first stitch. And from here, we're going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row. And in 2 places in our row, we want to place 2 single crochets. So we've already placed 2 single crochets in this first stitch. So we want to try to randomize where we place our other 2 single crochets. So once you make it around to the end of your row, you should have 7 single crochets. So you can remove your stitch marker. The pattern for our next row is to place 1 single crochet in every stitch except for 1 stitch where we want to place 2 single crochets. And from here, we are going to alternate our rows. So in this row, we are placing 2 single crochets in 1 stitch, and in our following row, we're going to place 2 single crochets in 2 stitches. So we're just going to repeat this alternating pattern until we reach 34 stitches in our latest row. And the key to make this look good is to always be increasing in a random stitch, or at least a different stitch from the row before. And once you've gotten your gnome hat up to 34 stitches in your latest row, it should look something like this. So we're going to remove our stitch marker. And from here, all we're going to do is just place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row for the next 4 rows. And after your 4 rows, we're going to cut our yarn. And from here, we're going to slide our crochet hook up underneath our next stitch and pull our yarn all the way through to tie it off. And we're going to attach this white color to our crochet hook using a slip knot. And from here, we're going to dive right into this same stitch where we just placed our slip stitch to tie off our yarn, and we're going to place a single crochet there. And you do have the option of crocheting over your tail if you want to. And we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row, going all the way around. And at the end of your row, make sure you don't accidentally work in your little slip stitch, and then you're going to place a slip stitch in the top of your first single crochet. And we're going to chain 1 and then place another single crochet back in that same stitch. And just like before, you have the option of crocheting over your tail if you want to. And from here, we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in our row, going all the way around. And at the end of your row, you're going to skip your slip stitch and your chain 1 and then place a slip stitch in the top of your first single crochet. And from here, we're going to cut and tie off our yarn. And I'm going to hide my tail in the direction I was crocheting for a few stitches and then up the inside of the little hat. And we are going to use the same pattern that we used to make our little pom-pom to make our nose. So we're going to begin with a magic circle. And we want to chain 1 and place 8 single crochets inside of our magic circle. Again, we want to tighten our magic circle up. And you can use a stitch marker to mark the first stitch of this next row if you want to. We're going to begin by skipping our chain 1, and then we're going to place 2 single crochets in each stitch in our row, going all the way around for a total of 16 single crochets. And once you have your 16 single crochets in place, then we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together going around our row. So to do that, insert your crochet hook up underneath your first stitch and yarn over and pull through. Then up underneath your second stitch, and we're going to yarn over and pull through. So we have 3 loops on our crochet hook, and we're going to yarn over and drop all 3 loops. Again, feel free to mark that first stitch if you would like to, but we're just going to repeat this going around our row for a total of 8 single crochets when we're done. From here, take your starting tail and tuck it into your little palm, and you can stuff this with anything that you have lying around. I like to save up my scrap yarn tails and tuck them in here. And from here, we're going to go ahead and cut our tail, but we want to leave it at about 8 inches. And we're going to slide our crochet hook in this next stitch and yarn over and pull our yarn all the way through our loops to tie it off. From here, we're just going to weave our tail in and out of our last row of single crochets. Once you're done weaving your tail, then you're just going to pull on it to cinch up the top of your palm. And from here, I like to work in a stitch on the opposite side of the top, and we're going to tie this cinch off. So now what I'm going to do is pull this tail through the top of my gnome hat. So now turn your gnome hat inside out, and you're going to tie these 2 tails together. And if you want to trim them, don't trim them too short. About right there is perfect. So go ahead and repeat the steps with your other color of yarn to create the nose for your gnome, and just make sure that you tuck that starting tail in and leave the ending tail out for attaching. And before we attach our nose, we are going to create our beard. And the easiest way to do this is to use a pair of scissors. So begin by cutting a strand of yarn a little longer than your scissors. And we're just going to tie a simple knot around one of the handles here. Then we're going to hold on to the other end of our yarn like this on the blade side. Then we're just going to start wrapping our yarn around our scissors like this. Once you've gotten your beard pretty thick around your scissors, you can remove your little simple knot here. And we're just going to hold on to our 2 ends that we wrapped around our scissors and remove our scissors. From here, we're going to tie these tightly together. So now you're going to hold on to those 2 ends, and you're just going to cut all of your loops here. And from here, you're going to pull your little tails up and slide your crochet hook through your loop here. And then we're going to draw our nose tail through our loop. And so now you can just let your ends fall as part of your beard if you want. And I like to trim up the really long pieces. So now I like to take the longer side and point it out forward, and that just kind of beefs up the top but thins out the bottom. Of course, you can slide your nose in this way if you want your beard to look like this. It doesn't really matter. From here, we're going to slide this nose tail to the inside of the wine portion next to our ending tail, right here. So now we're going to take our wine ending tail and slide it into the stitch next to where we slid our nose tail through. So you don't want these to go through the same loop. From here, we're just going to tightly tie our 2 tails together. And now you can hide them down the inside of your wine tote. And please let me know in the comments below if you ended up making this. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, Crochet with Julie, for more crochet patterns and tutorials. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.